Imagine it is 2 a.m. on a Tuesday.
Oh, man. Never a good time in this industry.
Right, it's the worst.
Huh.
You're a factory manager and you are paying double time to a full warehouse crew.
Just waiting.
Just waiting. You're pacing the loading bay, looking at your watch, and calling a dispatch number that just rings and rings.
And rings. Yeah.
Exactly, because the truck was supposed to be there, what, like 6 hours ago? No one knows where the load is. The driver's phone goes straight to voicemail. And tomorrow's entire production schedule is just completely dependent on whatever is sitting in the back of that missing trailer.
It's a complete nightmare scenario.
It is. And welcome to today's Deep Dive. I'm your host, and sitting across from me is our logistics analyst. Today we are looking directly at you, the South African fleet owners and operators out there navigating this relentless pressure.
Glad to be here. And yeah, that 2 a.m. panic attack, it's not just a bad night anymore. It is completely upending the South African logistics market.
It really is. And we are drawing our insights today from a really compelling piece of analysis that Greystride just published. It's titled, A Pattern Emerging in Transport Reliability Across Industries.
A very telling title, by the way.
Very. And the mission for this deep dive is to map out this massive, truly structural shift in what customers are demanding from transport networks right now.
Right. And more importantly, how the best fleet operators are fundamentally changing their models to meet that demand. Because the landscape we're looking at is one where the old rules of engagement are just being aggressively rewritten.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because, if you spent even a week managing logistics in South Africa, the typical conversation between a fleet operator and a customer usually begins and ends with one word.
Rates?
Rates. Exactly. It's just this endless grinding negotiation over cents per ton.
Yeah. For decades, the industry operated under this really brutal logic, right? Who can move this volume for the absolute lowest cost per kilometer?
Right. Whoever is cheapest wins the tender.
Yep. Exactly. But the data mapping out current customer behavior in the Greystride piece shows a definitive departure from that mindset. We are entering an era that requires a completely different approach.
Because a cheap rate is actually incredibly expensive if the truck never arrives.
Spot on. Or, if it arrives 3 days late with zero communication to the receiving warehouse. The market is realizing that the bottom line is no longer just the bottom line.
So what are these businesses across South Africa suddenly asking of their logistics partners?
They are asking a much more structural question. They're evaluating whether they can actually rely on a specific transport network to deliver consistently enough to actually build their own operational schedules around it.
The predictability over price.
Predictability, proactive communication, flawless execution. These things are rapidly dethroning price as the primary metric of success. The focus has moved from the cost of the transport to the cost of the transport's failure.
Wow, the cost of failure. But knowing the reliability is the new priority doesn't magically fix the reality on the ground.
No, it doesn't.
We have to look at the actual operational failures that are causing this 2 a.m. panic, the ripple effects, right?
Yeah, the everyday frustrations are just reaching a boiling point. We're talking about loads being collected far later than planned.
Missed delivery windows.
Exactly. Missed windows, badly managed breakdowns that disrupt entire supply chain schedules.
Yeah.
And sitting right at the center of all that chaos is the communication void.
The radio silence.
The radio silence. That communication void is the actual poison in the relationship.
Because it forces the customer to react blindly.
Right. A critical element to understand from the source material is that these transport inconsistencies, they're forcing customers to adjust their own internal operations just to buffer against the uncertainty.
Right. So let's look at the mechanics of that buffer. You have that factory manager we talked about in the intro paying overtime to a crew doing literally nothing.
Burning cash.
Burning cash.
Yeah.
Or, a retailer having to hold excess inventory, which ties up critical working capital just in case the next delivery doesn't show up.
They are absorbing the cost of the transporter's unreliability. It's becoming a tax on their business.
But, okay, let me push back on this for a second.
Sure.
Because I want to look at this from the perspective of the South African fleet operator listening to us right now. We are dealing with massive infrastructure hurdles here.
Unquestionably.
You've got deteriorating road conditions on municipal routes. You've got wild fuel price fluctuations. And, let's not even get started on the congestion queues at the Port of Durban.
Oh, or the N3 corridor bottlenecks.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
The N3 is a wild card on the best of days.
Mm-hmm.
Breakdowns and delays are just baked into the operating environment.
Mm-hmm.
So Isn't complaining about transport delays in this specific landscape a bit like complaining about the weather?
How so?
Like, you just have to deal with it. It's an
Yeah.
unavoidable reality of operating heavy vehicles in South Africa.
Well, what's fascinating here is how the underlying analysis actually validates that exact sentiment.
Oh, it does.
Yeah. Greystride explicitly acknowledges that the South African transport sector remains one of the most resilient and adaptive sectors in the entire economy.
Well, that's good to hear. Give the operators some credit.
Right. It recognizes that fleet owners are working through severe macroeconomic challenges. The failure being highlighted by the market is not the fact that a truck breaks down or that a highway gets closed.
So the market isn't demanding, like, a magical fleet that never blows a turbo.
Not at all. They understand the hostile environment perfectly. The failure is the lack of communication and predictability when those unavoidable events happen.
Ah, I see.
A closed road or a mechanical failure might be like the weather, right?
Mm.
Completely unpredictable, but failing to inform your customer that a storm has hit.
And failing to give them a new ETA.
Exactly. That is entirely within the operator's control. That is an active operational choice.
So the frustration isn't about demanding impossible perfection.
No, it's about managing a difficult reality through transparent, immediate communication.
It's the uncertainty that kills the customer's margin, not necessarily the delay itself.
Exactly. If they know about the delay 6 hours in advance, they can send that warehouse crew home.
They save the overtime.
They save the overtime, they preserve their margin. If they don't know, they're flying blind and fleeting cash.
Okay, so if the root cause is this desperate demand for certainty, we have to look at where this is happening.
Right.
Because you would assume this level of panic is isolated to, I don't know, highly sensitive cold chain logistics, right?
Where temp control is an issue.
Yeah, or hazardous materials where time is literally a matter of safety.
Well, the data proves that assumption completely wrong. A striking observation in the Greystride piece is that these exact same symptoms, the late collections, the missed windows, the devastating radio silence, they are appearing simultaneously across completely different sectors.
It's not just complex freight.
Not at all. The spread covers agriculture, manufacturing, mining, FMCG, wholesale distribution.
That is wild. Because consider how differently those businesses operate on a mechanical level.
Radically different.
Yeah, like a manufacturer waiting for a bulk delivery of raw steel faces a totally different physical challenge from a grain trader dealing with harvest seasons and silo storage.
Right. Or FMCG retailer moving perishable food.
Hmm.
They operate on incredibly tight turnaround times, which is a completely different world from a mining contractor waiting for a heavy equipment spare part.
Yet, despite existing in these entirely different operational realities, their core grievance with their transport providers is identical.
Identical.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because if everyone from the agriculture sector to the wholesale distributor is getting, sick with the exact same symptoms.
It's not an isolated incident.
It's not. It's not a glitch with one type of commodity or a specific regional route experiencing roadworks. It is a market-wide pattern. It is literally everywhere.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the emergence of this pattern reveals something fundamental about the broader economic environment.
What's it telling us?
Well, when you see the same concerns appearing across multiple unconnected industries, it points to underlying macro pressures. What we are seeing is a structural shift in how supply chains are functioning. Interest rates are high, margins are incredibly thin,
Oh, absolutely.
and businesses across the board have leaned out their operations just to survive.
So that buffer we talked about earlier, it's just gone. Nobody has the luxury of holding 3 weeks of safety stock in a warehouse anymore.
Precisely the point. The tolerance for uncertainty has hit absolute zero because the financial padding that used to absorb that uncertainty no longer exists.
That makes so much sense.
Right. A mining contractor waiting for a spare part suffers the same financial hemorrhage as a retailer waiting for fresh produce, because both are operating on just-in-time models that completely shatter when the transport link goes dark.
Okay, so if that is the diagnosis, this market-wide pattern of vanishing buffers and the desperate need for predictability, what is the cure?
That's the million-dollar question.
How are the top-tier businesses adapting to survive and thrive in this exact same challenging environment? Because if a fleet owner can't magically pave the municipal roads or fix the port delays, their competitive advantage has to come from somewhere else.
It does, and the data suggests it comes down to process. It comes down to treating reliability as a fundamental business requirement rather than an operational afterthought.
Okay, so what does that playbook actually look like?
Well, the businesses that are capturing market share right now share a few very specific operational characteristics. First, their transport networks are highly stable,
Meaning what exactly?
meaning they don't try to be everything to everyone. They understand their capacity and they optimize their routing algorithms to ensure a baseline of consistency that the customer can actually build a schedule around.
So they're essentially setting clear parameters from the start, which leads right into how they manage expectations, right?
Exactly.
A winning fleet isn't overpromising on transit times just to win a tender, only to fail on the execution.
No, they are setting realistic SLA's service level agreements, and they have the discipline to walk away from freight that forces them to operate outside their capability.
That discipline is crucial. But I'm guessing the most significant differentiator is the communication mechanism itself.
It is. When circumstances change, communication flows rapidly, but we need to look at how they do this.
It's not just a dispatcher frantically calling down a list of angry clients when things are already on fire.
No, that's the old way. Top-tier fleets are utilizing automated systems. They're using API integrations with their customer software and proactive geofencing alerts.
Oh, wow. So instead of manual intervention, the system is just doing all the heavy lifting.
Exactly.
So like if a truck stops moving on the N3 for more than 45 minutes, a geofence trigger automatically pushes a notification to the customer's receiving manager.
Complete with a revised ETA based on current traffic data. The client knows there is a problem before they even have to ask.
That is huge.
They are addressing problems before they spiral into massive disruptions. By pushing that data proactively, they give the client the most valuable commodity in logistics.
Time.
Time. Time to adjust their warehouse staff, time to alert their own retail stores, time to manage the fallout.
Let's expand on this idea of treating reliability as a business requirement versus an operational afterthought. Because I think about it like preventative maintenance on a truck.
Oh, that's a great way to frame it.
Right. As a fleet owner, you would never wait for the engine of your flagship rig to literally blow a piston on the highway before you decide, hey, it might be a good time to check the oil or replace the belts.
Right, you'd be out of business in a month.
You do preventative maintenance because keeping that physical asset moving is a non-negotiable business requirement.
The physical telemetry of the truck is constantly monitored to prevent catastrophic failure.
Exactly. But when it comes to customer communication and service predictability, so many operators lack any kind of relationship telemetry.
They treat it like an operational afterthought.
Yes. They only communicate when the engine of the relationship is already blown up, usually when the customer is screaming on the phone about demurrage costs and lost sales.
It's totally reactive.
Why would you treat your customer communication any differently than your engine maintenance? You need preventative communication.
Automated alerts?
Yeah, automated alerts and proactive dispatch cultures in place to maintain the relationship before the friction destroys it.
Which really, this raises an important question, and it's one every fleet owner and operator listening to this deep dive needs to ask themselves as they look at their own operations this week.
What's the question?
Are you positioned to adapt to these shifts early? Or are you waiting for these hidden market pressures to manifest as visible, painful disruptions to your bottom line?
Because the operators who recognize these shifts and implement the mechanisms to provide certainty, they are far better positioned to adapt before those pressures threaten their survival.
It's the difference between riding the wave and getting crushed by it. The market is establishing a new baseline standard for performance.
You can either be the one architecting that standard through your dispatch systems,
Or you can be the one scrambling to catch up when your anchor client suddenly jumps ship for a competitor who simply communicates better.
the trap a lot of operators fall into is just noticing the pattern and complaining about the state of the industry,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. The real value is interpreting what that pattern dictates about the future of your specific business model. It requires a hard audit of your internal processes.
Like asking, how long does it actually take for a driver's delay to translate into a customer notification?
Exactly. And if that answer relies entirely on a human remembering to make a phone call,
You are incredibly vulnerable.
highly vulnerable.
So what does this all mean? Let's bring this all together. We started by looking at a fundamental evolution in the South African logistics market, a definitive move away from rates being the solitary metric of value, toward an intense demand for predictability, consistency, and proactive communication.
We explore the real-world symptoms of failure, right? The late loads, the missed delivery windows, and the devastating financial impact that radio silence has on a customer's own highly leaned out operations.
And we also mapped out how this demand for certainty isn't isolated to one specific type of freight. It's a cross-industry reality. It's affecting everything from mining contractors to retail distribution, driven by a macroeconomic environment where nobody has the financial buffer to absorb transport inefficiencies anymore.
And finally, we unpack the mechanics of the fleets that are actually winning in this environment. The ones that prioritize stable network routing, heavily defined expectations, and automated rapid communication.
Fleets that treat reliability as a core business requirement rather than an afterthought.
Exactly.
And here's the thing I want you, the listener, to really take to heart as you run your fleets this week. This insight from Greystride is actually an enormous strategic opportunity.
It's great news if you leverage it right.
It is. It means you no longer have to bleed your margins dry, trying to be the absolute cheapest option on the market just to win the best contracts.
You don't have to engage in that endless race to the bottom on price.
Right. Instead, you have the opportunity to win by being the most reliable and the most communicative. You win by systematically removing the customer's anxiety.
It fundamentally changes the entire value proposition of your business. You are transitioning from selling space on a trailer to selling certainty in a highly uncertain environment.
And in today's market, certainty commands a premium.
A massive premium.
We are going to leave you with a final thought today. Something to mull over as you look at your own dispatch boards, your telemetry dashboards, and your customer communication protocols this week.
Let's hear it.
If predictability and proactive communication are truly becoming the ultimate currency across all these diverse industries, are we rapidly approaching a future where fleet operators compete more fiercely on the quality of their API integrations, their automated alert systems, and their dispatch updates than on the actual horsepower and size of their trucks?
Wow. That's a paradigm shift.
Right. Could a lean, highly communicative fleet of 20 trucks outmaneuver a massive, silent fleet of 200 simply by removing the customer's operational headache?
I think the data suggests they absolutely could.
Think about what the telemetry of your customer relationships looks like right now. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
Take a hard look at your operations this week. Not just the physical assets, but the communication architecture, tying it all together. Until next time, keep those fleets moving and keep the communication flowing.